Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Today is January 2nd, 2024. This is the Westport Finance Committee meeting. It is 6:30 p.m. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20. On March 29, 2023, Governor Healy signed a supplemental 2023 budget bill allowing remote and hybrid meeting options for public bodies through March 31st, 2025. This meeting is now being recorded. So we'll open it up with Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you very much. We've got a couple of budgets up tonight. I know the library is here, as well as I guess technically still Deputy Daniel Baldwin, who will be sworn in as the chief this coming weekend. I believe I'm going to start it off, since I know it'll be fairly brief. I'm going to start it off with the library. One announcement I will make: we did receive the resignation from Lawrence. Has resigned from the Finance Committee due to some conflicting, family issues at home. Taking time. His work is taking a lot more time than he had anticipated, and he wanted to devote more of his time to his family as well. There's no doubt when you sign up for this committee, January, February, and March, you're going to be busy on Tuesday nights. So anyway, we thank him for his service that he provided to us, and we wish him certainly well. So George, I think you should be up. The budget for the library should have been included in the meeting folder. George, I'm not sure if you have the ability to share a budget with us. If not, that's okay. We should have all had the opportunity to have it at hand. Any chance you have that available? If not, that's okay.
I don't think I have it on this computer. I'm sorry.
Okay, then that's fine. That's fine. So George, why don't you introduce yourself to the members of the committee and tell us a little bit about what's going on at the library and your budget.
Thank you. So here at the Westport Free Public Library, I've been the director this is the third year now, so nobody's run me out of town yet. We're very happy to be able to report that. And for me personally, it's been a really great experience coming in, working with Sue, taking over, and working with her continually to help advance the library and help us come into the 21st century, doing our best to meet the information and literary needs of everyone in Westport. It's been a challenge, but it's also been a lot of fun, and it's been a great experience. And we look forward in not only calendar 24, but fiscal 25 to continue doing that. We do strive to deliver the best services, programs, and materials possible to the residents of Westport, but increasing costs and workload do provide challenges alongside the needs of an aging library building. As many of you may remember, we had an addition put onto the library back in 2007 through 2010, which has been amazing and vastly improved the ability of the library to deliver services to the town residents. But the original portion of the library was built in the late 60s, early 70s. So there's a good amount, we'll put it that way, of projects we're working on trying to improve access to the library and to maintain its physical structure, I guess you could say. We continue to set new records for library visitation per year, as well as our total circulation is the highest we have on record. Our FY25 budget intends to again improve on our core services while at the same time having only contractually required salary increases and no other enhancements. Trying to balance all of these demands while ensuring minimum negative impact on resident services is the guiding principle behind our FY25 budget. with the fundraising help of the Friends of the Westport Library, our efforts to maximize our state aid to libraries grants, and the support of generous donors throughout the community, we strive to continually improve our ability to provide library services each and every year. So in a nutshell, basically right now, thanks to the support of the town and the Friends and individual donors, we are currently seeing the highest foot traffic in the library and the highest circulation we've ever had. Last year was the highest attended children's programming we've had in 15 years, and the highest attended adult programming we've ever had on record as well. We're continually trying to adjust the library offerings inside the building to match the current needs of Westport residents. However that may be. Basically, nothing is a sacred calf, as they say. So anything we have, we're looking constantly at, is this the best way we can do it? Is there something we can offer that minimizes staff time so we can use staff time in other locations in other ways and other services? One of the new things we tried last year was we actually decreased the number of public computers we have in the building, just from the amount of space they take up. So now we have 4 public computers available, but we've actually seen almost a doubling in computer use time because the computers are new and they're being used more often, and it also has created more areas in the library for people to come in and use their laptops. So now when there are people bringing their own computers, we don't necessarily need to have a large number of computers here for people to use. We've also been working with Keith from the town's technology department to increase our Wi-Fi abilities so that we can have more people in the library using their own devices or even just their phones, which a lot of the kids who come over to the library when school lets out, since we're right next door to the middle school, high school, anywhere on any given Monday through Friday, we'll have anywhere from 10 to 50 kids here, depending whether or not it's a game day. And every single one of them, most of the time, has a phone that they're on the second they come in the building, which puts a damper on our Wi-Fi. So working with Keith to kind of improve the ability of the library's technological infrastructure to support that. It's been a fun challenge, as I said. Just seeing, there have been days where there's so many people inside the library, the Wi-Fi stopped being able to accept new people. So it's been great, but it's also been dynamic to see that need and that scale of increased usage.
And just how things have changed over time.
Yeah.
As how people use the people use the library. You have a question?
Yes. I know that the addition was privately financed. Are you familiar with the background of that?
Yes, sir.
Process? Okay.
I've been told of it. Yes, that was before my time in the town, obviously.
Well, that's why I was wondering. I know Sue was around at that point. But the only reason I mention it is there's certainly the possibility that that organization would be interested in doing something about the projects that you have in the back burner. No guarantees, of course. But
of course,
if you have that project, I'm sure it may be in this point of the analytical stage rather than having focused on what needs to be done and what it was sort of a project outline.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do get to that stage, you might consider seeing if there's a possibility.
I certainly would, and we would be very interested in pursuing that, not only ourselves but in collaboration with the Friends. So it wouldn't just be on that organization. But
Al, you have a question?
I'm sorry.
No, I actually have a comment. There's been a little bit of a buzz over the last 3 to 4 months about, and this pops up occasionally, about the need for the library. Is the library obsolete and whatever? I want to up front, I am a huge fan of libraries. So this is coming from a friend of libraries, but I believe that it would not be a bad idea for whatever group within the library to maybe post in whatever what you just said earlier about the usage of the library. I think that's critically important. And to Hugh's point earlier, not about the possible additional funding, but just the Manton room, if you and the amount of town resources, whether it's a historical society or some other group that uses the library, this is just me. I think you could do, you've done a good job, but you could do a better job just getting out in front of people, because, in these crazy times that we're in,
Yes.
God only knows what, what can come out of social media or whatnot, both good, bad, or indifferent. So it was a comment, Cindy, than a a question or an admonition. So anyway,
That's fine.
I'll
That's fine.
Thank you, sir.
Christopher, you have your hand up.
I do indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here this evening. I did want to ask two questions. First of all, I am looking at the budget in front of me here. There's a particular line that I'm just curious about. I think I know what it is, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Sure.
Professional services for $11,000, and that seems to be consistent over a few years. What does that go to specifically? Is that?
Yes, sir. So basically the professional services line, a couple of years back, I looked at maybe renaming it, but it was just easier just to leave it that way. That is our consortium membership for the regional library district we're a part of. It's called the Sales Library Network. So that is half of the assessment. The rest of it comes from either donations or from state aid, something like that, which pays for our membership in the reciprocal borrowing network we belong to, which runs from us to Wareham, and then the northern boundary, I believe, is somewhere up near Foxborough. So that handles the data backbone of cataloging, collection assessment, and some, depending which half you assume the money comes from, some of the ebooks that we have.
Excellent. Okay, that's exactly what I thought it was, but I appreciate you clarifying that.
Mhm.
And
No problem.
another question is just to, I guess, so I notice here that you talk about the amount of money that is that needs to be spent on material expenditures that's mandated by the Commonwealth here. And I noticed that you had mentioned that does not come from town funds. Do you have any kind of estimate as to how much out of the current trust funds would be going towards that this year or for the next coming year by any chance?
An estimate. So it will be anywhere from, depending on which pockets of money we pull from. This year, I'm trying to let a couple of the trust funds lie in repose, I guess you could say, to rebuild some of the surplus, not the surplus, but there's a couple of them that we're starting to spend into principal. So I'm trying to let a little bit of a cushion build up so that they don't run all the way empty. So right now we're looking at anywhere from 5 to 15,000 would need to come from either the trust funds or from the gift accounts or from direct donations. Give or take.
Excellent.
I will make mention, for those of you who don't necessarily have the budget directly in front of you, the addendum that he also put together, which has been very helpful, that lists 19 different sources of trust accounts that the library is very fortunate to have to be able to dip into as needed. So this helps tremendously. I don't know if it shows, I didn't have an opportunity to show above where you show there's been any amounts transferred from those funds into your budget, or is that just kind of an off balance sheet item that occurs? If you need the funds, you just take it from there. It doesn't really show up in your expenditures, does it?
It does. So those are municipal accounts. So those are spent from when we pay bills, just like it was a municipal fund, except there's a different system, basically. Most of those, the big problem we have is many were restricted by donees or donors. The donor.
Donors, right.
I got stuck on my English. So a lot of them are restricted by what we can use them for. There are some that are only for nonfiction. There are some that are only for books by primarily intended to be for books by female authors, specifically or hopefully first-time female authors. Many are only interest. There's some that's only like $1,000 or $1,500, and they're interest only accounts. So in any given year, the amount we can actually spend out of that is minimal. So those will let build for a couple of years before we'll do one purchase against them, something like that. So
I
it gets
guess
interesting.
my question is that of the 300, well, last year and this current year, of the 300, we'll call it $330,000 in your total budget. How much of that came from town funds versus your
that's
other
total.
accounts?
That's all town.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So the different accounts that you show, the other revenue accounts that you show, the grants and whatnot, how do you show how that is spent? Where does that come from? So if you took, for example, money out of the expansion, I'm just pulling one, expansion gift account that has $65,000, if you used any of that money,
Mhm.
how does it show up in your budget?
Well, it doesn't show up in that budget. It would show up in
Right.
the expenditure reports to the town.
Okay, so of all of this, how much did you use last year? I mean, it kind of ties into the previous question. 10 to 15,000?
Yep, hold on one second. I'm sorry. That was on the,
Was that on the sheet here? Did I miss that?
yep, 1 second. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well,
That's
if it
okay.
was here, then I just missed it. I'm sorry.
It's on the 1, 2, 3, the 4th page, I think.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
So that's the one that has the 330.
Yeah, the 330, 339.
So it's 366,902.
Oh, okay. I have to say that I don't see that page, but okay, I'll look for it. But that's why I was just curious where, if you do show how that's accounted for.
So
Okay,
basically, the rough math is depending on the year, it's about 75-25.
okay.
Um,
I saw that in the narrative, so, okay,
Yep.
that's helpful.
But yeah,
Okay.
pretty much it's the book budget is the main thing. And then there might be some other stuff here or there, but that's the
Okay.
majority of it.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good. You have your hand up.
Just curious, how is the investment management side of the trust accounts managed?
It's through the town, sir. So that's a question for the town treasurer collector, I believe.
So there is a trust committee or something of that nature. So,
Yes, sir.
and I'm sure it's difficult to deal with those because you have particular accounts with particular restrictions, which may also extend to the investment side of things. But so Jim would be the person who is familiar with that, I assume. Thank you.
Yeah, I know a little bit about it, but mostly it's, invested according to, the state laws and all that.
Now, state laws, though, don't deal with reality sometimes. That's why.
I know that the general principle is to invest it so there's as little to no risk of any risk as is possible. So, that's why the returns are very,
That's right. But that's when you make no money. So the question is, when they change in interest rates, now some things that have been quasi cash accounts actually produce something, whereas they didn't for about 15 years.
we hope.
On the other hand, you don't want people buying crypto or whatever. So
Right. Yes.
yeah, no, I understand the limitations. I'm just curious what the mechanism is.
I know generally it's, from what I've seen since I've been here, it's anywhere from like 2 to 5% of the last couple of years. So I mean, what happens going forward, I don't know. So
I'll check with Jim. That's fine. Thank you.
Christopher.
Yes, so just to follow up on Mr. Morton's question there, I know that the library trust accounts are actually managed separate from other trust accounts. That would be the trust fund commission would vote on things for just about every other trust account except for the library. The library is completely separate. But I do know from, I believe if Ms. Brayton's here, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost positive that all the trust fund accounts are all managed by the same fund manager, whether it's library or additional trust funds.
yes. And then there also should be a fun sheet at the end of the packet where it has kind of a summary of some of the funner stats we had for the last year as well. Just so everyone sees that one too.
Right.
I was proud of that infographic.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, your budget certainly reflects the very modest minimal increases that have been subscribed to by the town in going forward in many of the budgets. So unless anyone has any other questions, we'll let George go on his way. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for your very descriptive narrative and the list of all of the funds and grants and trusts that come under the domain of the library. That's very very helpful to us. I hope we continue to participate in the sales network. I mean, just last night at 12:30 in the morning, I was downloading a book, an audio book at 12:30, and I was very grateful that I could do that in the middle of the night.
While I have you on the phone, have you added the other library networks yet?
Uh-oh.
No.
Okay, I don't want to overwhelm you, but we now have actually a borrowing agreement between all of the library networks in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
So with your Westport library card,
Yeah.
with Libby, you can actually add Boston, Springfield, Worcester, all the libraries in the state now.
Oh, great.
And it'll automatically put you on whichever waitlist has shortest, or
Yeah.
automatically check it out from another library. So
Oh,
come
great.
on by, we'll get you set up.
Good. Good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, George, for
You're
your
welcome.
time and for your presentation.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
And as everyone can see, our esteemed chairperson has joined us. I'm sure she's looking for some red meat after dealing with the traffic coming back from Providence. So thank you, Karen, for joining us. The library account was the only account that we have viewed so far. So I think we're ready to and I did mention the resignation of Lawrence as well. So
Great, thank you.
other than that, I think we can tee it up for Deputy Dan.
Yeah, or
Soon to be-
or should
soon
we
to
do
be-
planning next? Because there should be
Oh, okay.
quick probably, so they don't have to hang out because our fire
Sure.
might be a lengthy one.
Sure, we can do, we can do planning.
Do
Yep.
you mind, Deputy Mr. Baldwin, hanging on for a little bit, and then we'll give you all the time you need?
That's no
Great.
problem.
Great, thank you. Terrific,
There's Michael,
great.
planning.
Planning. Michael, you're with us. I think we're gonna have you next.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so if you be happy to introduce yourself and talk about your budget. Well,
Yeah.
and thank you for coming here. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I've been working for the town in the planning office since October of last year. And so what we've been doing over the last year, aside from normal sort of development applications, subdivision, site plans, those things, we've been applying for grants pretty aggressively. And so we've received a little over $1 million in grant funds over the past year through a variety of different programs. It's everything to support the Route 6 sewer project to smaller projects through our Climate Resilience Committee and other town operations like our MS4 permitting. So, kind of trying to augment some special projects, but then also looking at where we can go and get funds for things that would come out of the town's regular operating budget.
Great. So Michael, I think I believe we all have your budget, and it looks pretty status quo to last year. I didn't see any major changes to it. Is there anything for you to highlight for us from changes from last year? What's in your fiscal budget?
No, there are no major changes for this year. It's pretty much just standard operating budget plus the average annual salary increases.
Mhm.
I have a question.
Sure.
The computer software, what type of computer software do you use that is specific to the planning board that's listed here?
Yeah, we use two different programs that are specific to the planning board. One is Esri ArcGIS, which is a geospatial mapping software. And then we use Bluebeam Review in my office as well. And that's something that we use to review plans. So instead of having to print a plan and break out a scale and scale everything to that plan, we can do it all on the computer.
Okay. And then I will just follow up with a similar question that maybe Chris is going to ask, and I'm taking his thunder away here. Professional services. So that's been kind of an up and down thing. Going back a few years, it was rather significant. It dropped almost to zero. And then these last 2 years, it's steady at 27,000. What does that represent?
The professional services in fiscal year 23 was supplanted by an ARPA grant. So there was $30,000 in ARPA funds that were awarded for the town's municipal storm sewer permit. And so that's the reason for the drop that year, is that those ARPA funds supplanted the regular operations budget. So typically we spend between $10,000 to $15,000 a year on storm sewer investigations to find sources of illicit discharges into the town storm sewer, and we contract for those services. And then the remaining, whatever's left over from that, it depends on the year, how much in services that we actually use for those investigations, and assistance from Kleinfelder Engineering, who also helps us prepare that annual report for the permit. Whatever's left over gets plugged into grant match.
Cindy, do you have any other questions?
No, that's good.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you. Christopher, you have your hand up.
Yes, so Cindy, you did hit on one thing I wanted to ask, but I do have a couple other questions. First of all, just to follow back up on the software and the GIS that you all are using, just out of curiosity, is there any other town department that you're aware of that uses the GIS? And I'm guessing this is a little bit more intense than say the Mass Map or free ones out there. So I'm just curious, what exactly do you all use it for, and does any other town department use it that you're aware of?
The assessors department uses GIS as well. And what we use it for is to make our own maps, and we can go in and manipulate the metadata behind each layer file, and actually, reshape. We can do different geographic analyses, geospatial analyses with the GIS software that you couldn't otherwise do in like Mass Mapper or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay, excellent. And my last question is just kind of a hypothetical. So I have not seen the latest version of the proposed short-term rental zone or zoning or whatever bylaw it's going to end up being when it hits town meeting. But I was curious, is there anything in there that would cause the planning board any kind of additional expenditures, even or any additional staff time, or is that all going to be Board of Health, at least as it stands right now? Just out of curiosity.
Right. So the way that permitting process would work is, we're coordinating the zoning bylaw amendment, but the actual review of those projects go through planning at all. They will go through the building inspector. If there's a change of use, then there'll have to be some sort of acknowledgement of the use is allowed in that district, and then the actual permit itself would be issued through the Board of Health. So you're correct. There's no additional staff time required from planning.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. The next person that has their hand up says unknown, so I'm not sure who that is. But the hand just went down. Okay.
Oh, Karen, that's me, Gary.
Oh, there you go, Gary. Hi,
Yeah,
unknown.
sorry. So, I guess the question I had, a couple of questions for the planning department. Do we know how much available buildable land is left in town? And maybe over the last 5 years, does anyone track the trend of how many new developments have been put in, how many new homes have been put in, and whether or not that's increased or decreased? Do we follow that, or do we track that? I know I could ask the assessor's office or talk to the building department, but does planning track any the new developments, whether that's increased or decreased?
So, yeah, I mean, we could generate that information. Coming from the planning office, we would be tracking more subdivision approvals and site plan approvals. So a little bit separate from, building, they would probably give you a more of an accurate measurement of like what kinds of, what the incidence of single family home development is over the past couple of years or something like that. But yeah, we could generate that information. Certainly. I don't have.
Probably. I mean, that's probably an on the spot question, but I think that's really important for us to track. And the reason why is, at a certain point in time, obviously we talk about revenues, we talk about tax dollars. The town will be tapped out as far as development is concerned, and mostly and mainly developments, and maybe not single family homes, but we rely on these developments because, you can put in 30 homes, or less. But if it'd be nice to see the trend, and it'd be nice to know how much capacity the town has going forward. I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, what is developable is going to it's going to depend on how the town defines what is a developable property.
Right.
The way zoning works is it kind of creates, it can create artificial, an artificial market force where we're saying you can't do these certain things in this place. So, is there capacity to build at a higher residential density? Sure. It would require sewer in most circumstances, but yeah, I mean that's something that the town could parse out. It just it'd have to go before town meeting and go through a public process in order to get people's what they'll appreciate for change like that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point in time, we plateau. We will plateau of in a time when we won't be doing multi-family home developments. I mean, it'll get to that point. Whether that's now, whether that's 5 years from now, it'd be nice to know.
Anything else, Gary?
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Al, you have your hand up.
I did. Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask a question, and it's specifically about Route 6 and the potential amount of money that the town is going to be asked to spend to put in water and sewer. And there's been a lot of talk about the build out of Route 6 and economic development and so on and so forth. Personally, I have a different take on it. I think it's more of a Trojan horse. That when one looks at MapGeo and all the other things that are available to us, how little space there is really available for new build out. And so my question is, what is the planning board's position regarding how much of this water and sewer is going to remediate existing problems along and beyond Route 6 at a cost to, and how much is actually going to be new revenue for the town via whatever type of commercial and or residential, in the town, along Route 6. So that's my.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can zone for it, but someone's got to come in and actually build the thing. Right. So that's kind of, the planning board would like to see underutilized properties in that corridor be redeveloped. Whether or not that actually occurs, that's going to be up to market forces and developers to make that assessment. Having said, there was a study done that SERPA did in, I think it was 2017. And they were projecting in a medium density scenario an additional tax revenue of approximately $480,000. And so that would be if the area between Fall River and Route 88 developed similar to the White's development up there. So those numbers probably need to be updated at this point, but that gives you, at least somewhat of a projection.
Okay, I just think it's a bookmark that we need to put on both the finance committee and the town as a whole to look at the cost benefit ratio, because it's an extraordinary expense.
Sure.
It would be needed. I'm not questioning that for whatever reason, but I'm still not convinced that it is it's necessary or it's maybe necessary, but it's not going to pay for itself based on economic development. So that's another story for another day. I just wanted to put that on the table. That's all.
Sure. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Al. And we may or may not be seeing that coming to us as a warrant article this year. So when that comes to, if it is on the warrant this year, we will certainly be engaging in more specifics of those conversations. So, but yes, so that might be coming to us very soon. Thank you, Al. Hugh, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise to the point that Gary was making about new development and so forth. There's an awful lot of construction that is not a development. It's Rule A or permission not required, non-subdivision. A whole bunch of houses sprung up on Sodom Road in the last year or so. So in terms of the counting of what's happening or might happen, I think that the big subdivision is fairly obvious when you look at it on the map. But on the other hand, I'm not sure that the overall composition of new construction isn't more covered by improvement not required plans. Just a thought.
Hugh, I think what you're saying, from what I understand somewhat anecdotally, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but from conversations with other planning board members, that's their sense as well, that the sort of less challenging properties to develop into a 10-lot subdivision, those have basically been developed at this time. And so now developers are looking for the other sources of low-hanging fruit, which are these types of A&R developments that go right down piece after piece down a road.
Yeah, but you got to remember, as I'm sure you know, there's the way in existence justification for many lots that never become a subdivision legally, but they are a division of land. I don't mean to be semantic, but they're perfectly legal, et cetera, but they don't come into the category of the subdivision law. And there are lots and lots of laneways and other things around town that probably would qualify as legal frontage for those kinds of non-development developments, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Thank you, Hugh. Does anyone else have any questions for Michael on the planning board or the budget or anything else? it looks like we asked our questions, Michael.
All right, great.
Appreciate your coming in. Thank you very much for your time. And I think you're free, or you
All
can
right.
stay if you want, but
Thank you.
but
Have a good
but
night.
you're free. All right. Have a good night. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, everyone. So the next budget for tonight is to talk about the fire department. And we have Deputy Daniel Baldwin with us. And we'd love to introduce you, Mr. Baldwin, and maybe you can talk about when are you becoming the new chief? And congratulations to you on that.
Thank you. So you can call me Dan. My appointment will be effective Sunday night at midnight. Replacing me will be Mark Brisk, who'll be the deputy fire chief. So basically put this budget together on my own over the last month or so, kind of had to cram things in. I did my best to present what I think was a very thorough packet to the finance committee, which I can explain in detail if you'd like me to begin. You can go ahead and do that and then answer any questions that you might have.
The floor is yours.
I just want to, and I'll be brief. I know some of you guys know that I can talk, but I'll try to keep it brief. There are some new committee members that I'm not familiar with, and I just think I'd like to just really briefly go over who we are and what we do. So we're obviously a full-time career fire department. We're augmented by about 10 on-call firefighters, and we have an EMA division, small EMA division, which is largely a volunteer portion of our department, mainly with retired members and people that just want to kind of help out, but maybe the fire service just wasn't an avenue they wanted to pursue, but they still kind of wanted to be involved. All of our full-time firefighters are also paramedics, so we're dual role. We're firefighters and paramedics. We're in some organizations, you have two separate payrolls, two separate functions. Firefighters deal with fire calls and EMS personnel deal with EMS calls. We deal with both, myself included. We participate in several public relation programs throughout the year, from parades, holiday gatherings, educational programs within the school system, many valuable programs for our seniors in town. We work very closely with the Veteran Services Organization in town, the Council on Aging as well. We cover 64 square miles of land. As you know, we have about 30 miles of coastline. We have Route 195, which, as we all know, is heavily traversed daily. Route 177 and 88. We have plenty of motor vehicle crashes. We were on 195 today for a car fire earlier this morning. We've seen too many fatalities on all three of these roads, including our rural roads, but the highways tend to where we see the most of our severe crashes and whatnot, which do require a lot of hands to deal with often. Many of our members continue to go above and beyond their pay grade, above and beyond their job description and what is expected of them as far as station maintenance, fleet maintenance. I had a firefighter over the weekend repair the exhaust on one of our engines, 5-inch exhaust, not an easy job. We didn't have to bring it to a shop. We didn't have to pay $185 an hour for labor. He bought the parts locally, $150 in parts, and in an hour or two, the job was done. That is a constant in this department, from painting walls, replacing ceiling tile, whatever we can do, that aren't beyond what we're capable of doing. For example, we won't touch brakes or anything like that in a vehicle. There's safety aspects involved, but anything that the members can do, they're always willing to step up. And I have to give them that nod, because you don't see that in a lot of places and a lot of departments anymore. But these guys and girls are always willing to step up. Still kind of tallying the year's numbers. It's only January 2nd, but we answered right around 3,200 calls. I think it was 3,216. About 2,500 were EMS, 700 were fire related. That does not mean we had 700 building fires. Fire related calls to us, to a firefighter, to a fire department, are anything from gas leaks, carbon monoxide leaks, fuel leaks, strange odors in a house. Engine just came back right now from an illegal burn in the center of town. building fires, electrical fires, storm-related incidents, wind-related incidents, lightning, hazmat, you name it. We're who you call when you don't know who else to call. That's essentially the best way I can put it. And we answer, all kinds of calls. In 2023, and excuse me, I'm going to be looking away because I have a couple of screens up with information on it. We transported 1,877 patients to the hospital. I said 2,500 EMS calls. Not everyone is a transport. Not everyone. Sometimes we're canceled en route. Sometimes it's just a public assist, help somebody up, what have you. But 1,877 patients to the hospitals are revenue generating calls. In 2022, we transported 1,786. So we're up maybe about 100 or so. We required mutual aid to come into town 88 times from the surrounding communities, and we reciprocated that about 124 times, I think it was. Again, still tallying up the numbers, but I'm pretty confident in those figures. We have 21 line staff members, which means we have 21 firefighters not operating at one time, but 21 total full-time employees. We have 3 operating groups staffed at a minimum of 4, maximum of 5. We have 1 group that operates at a minimum of 4, maximum of 6. 6 is our desired staffing level. Some would argue that it should be more, but realistically, I think 6 is where we need to shoot for at this time. Chief Legender started shooting for that goal about 20 years ago, and in that time, we've only added 1 additional personnel. The shift that is staffed at 6 allows us to man 3 ambulances, 2 in the center of town, 1 in the north end of town. It allows us to put 2 ambulances on the road, 1 engine with 2 on it for motor vehicle crashes and involving down wires, fire, extrication. So it's an optimal. It's really nice when we have 6 on, and when we have an incident, and we're not worrying about is anybody available to come in off duty. We can, we got 2 in each truck. It just really works out for us. So obviously our long-term goal, and one of my biggest goals is the new fire chief will be, continuing to work with the town and folks like yourselves to try and get 3 more additional personnel to bring us to that staffing level of 6. We did propose that in our budget request to the town administrator, and it was cut out for this year. Not having the 6 doesn't allow us to safely staff per NFPA standards. NFPA 1720 rural calls for minimum of 6 staff members to assemble on scene within 14 minutes, 80% of the time. That's not always an option for us. Too often we're at the minimum of 4. We don't have a 1-for-1 replacement. So what does that mean? In some departments, if you have 5 on a shift and 1 person puts a vacation, you bring in somebody on overtime to maintain that level of 5. We drop to 4. Even with the 6-person shift, we drop to 4 if 2 are out. There's the OSHA standard that's out now. It's 2 in, 2 out rule, which means if you have 2 firefighters in the building, you're supposed to have 2 outside ready to go. There's your 4 minimum right there. You can't have somebody operating a pump with firefighters on the end of a hose line ready to go into the building. God forbid something goes wrong. So, we're operating below, adequate and safe levels. And we've been doing that for years. And I think I mentioned in my chief's interview, it's to our disadvantage that we're able to actually do what we do with what we have. It doesn't really help us, but kudos to the members for, getting the job done. And hopefully nothing
We ask you, I
horrific
think we've got,
comes of it.
and
What can I say here? We did have, when we operate at 4, and we go out on a call in Westport, takes about an hour to 2 hours, depending on where we transport to. If we transport to Rhode Island Hospital, we went there last week with a trauma, obviously, especially with the traffic problems out there now. That's a 2-hour ambulance run all day long. If we can't get anybody to come back in to cover, the station is unmanned. That happened 170 times in 2023. It happened over 200 times in 2022. So that's something that always bothers me. And I've come in in the middle of the night when we can't get anybody. So if I switch on over to the budget request sheet that,
Dan, one second before, we might have a couple of questions for you if you don't
okay.
mind.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know Hugh's got his hand up, and I just wanted to just follow up on your staffing. As the chief lieutenant, finance committee was in support, obviously, of trying to hire maybe one a year for 5 years to really help build up that. And then budget constraints have really stopped that. So you're at the point now where 3 more would get you to where you feel. I just wanted to clarify that.
Correct.
And then
I did acknowledge that in my letter that I put together for you, that I finance committee was in support, as well as selectmen and whatnot.
Right.
And then the recession happened, and
Right.
you know, and ever since then it's been, you know, just the money has not been there. I understand that. I
And
appreciate.
can you just expand on when you say your department's not up to NFP standards where that would require 6, what does that mean? Does that mean, are there fees and penalties or less revenue that is available, or is it a safety?
No, it's standard
issue?
it's standard set forth by the National Fire Protection Agency. 1710 would be for cities, 1720 would be for a community like us. Some have argued we actually could potentially fall into 1710, but I've worked enough with some of the FEMA representatives in the Northeast, and 1720 is really where we should be, which actually, to be honest with you, is to the betterment of the town, because 1720 calls for a lot more firefighters than 1710 calls for a lot more than 1720 does. It's really about safety. It's about safety. I mean, and it is nothing to do with revenue. Fire, we don't generate revenue in terms of our fire response. It's the safety of our members. It's the safety of the public. You know, our 3 main functions are life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. And we can't conserve property, meaning homes, building, businesses, with 4 people on duty, and then hoping that people are going to, you know, respond in from home in a 64 square mile town. You know, I live in the South End. Just for me to get to Westport Harbor is a 15, 17-minute ride. For me to get to the North End is a 15-minute ride, and vice versa for firefighters that live in the North End that have to head south. And that's with ideal road conditions. That's not waking up at 3 a.m. and coming out and finding your vehicle covered in frost or snow. I mean, those are the realities of what we deal with when you're dealing with and relying on an off-duty response. But it's definitely about safety. You know, we train as a group. It takes a pump operator. You're supposed to have a safety officer on the fire ground, which most of the time we do not have. You have to have an incident commander. You want at least 2 on the hand line going in. 3 is preferred. We're supposed to be laddering a building. We're supposed to be laddering means of egress. So if we have firefighters in a 2-story residential building, which is common in Westport, we should be laddering that 2nd floor so firefighters can get out if they can't get out the stairwell that they went up and they have to bail out a window. Most of the time we can't provide the basic safety functions for our members. And obviously it's one, I'm the chief. It's everybody needs to go home at the end of our call, you know? So that's my biggest concern, in terms of staffing. And the six will get us, it'll get us more comfortable, you know? It really will. It makes a huge difference. And even having 5 makes a big difference as opposed to being dropped down to 4. You have to kind of do the job to really understand it, but just having that 1 extra person, you know, and during the day I'm on, the deputy's on, fire prevention's on. So during the day we have a healthy complement of staffing Monday through Friday, you know, in the station, ready to respond, ready to go. Night times, weekends, holidays, when we, you know, outside of our normal working hours, I'm a 40-hour work employee or more, you know, still in the station now, and it's 7:30 and got here at 7. Just about safety and manpower and you know, being able to do our job effectively. And it goes beyond building fires, vehicle extrication, trying to get somebody out of a vehicle, especially the way they're constructed today. Then you know, triaging and evaluating the patients and starting care. Sometimes we start care right in the vehicle while we're cutting the patient out. I mean, these are all things that we do. These are things that require staffing, you know. So that's why, you know, we're going to be strong advocates for at least a 6-person shift.
Thank you for adding that extra flavor. That's what I was looking for. Hugh has his hand up, so I'm going to let Hugh ask a question before you keep going on to all your statistics that you got. So thank you.
Thank you. Actually, if I remember, there is a public safety staffing committee of which your predecessor is a member and Chief Pelletier is a member. Do you know whether you're going to become a member of that, or is that it's been fairly dormant only because of the reasons that Karen's mentioned? There just isn't the money, but everybody's been on board with just the things you're talking about, subject to the financial realities. At one time, that committee was your predecessor, Chief Pelletier, myself, and one of the selectmen. I'm still here, but you guys are gone. Or if your predecessors are gone. But do you know whether you're going to assume that role or not?
I would be more than happy to. I haven't been approached about it at all. I think maybe because it was a little dormant. Chief Legenda, he mentioned it a few times, but in the last, say, 6 months or so, there hasn't really been conversation. But if that committee is looking to, reorganize, revitalize, absolutely, I would be more than happy
There's
to.
really nothing for the committee to do at this point because we all agree on the need, et cetera, but we don't have the money. On the other hand, there's no harm to have it standing by just in case
Yeah, sure.
we get more revenue for this or that. And I'm trying to think. So Ekman, escapes my mind at the moment, but that's been the four-man committee.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Hugh. Michelle Orlando, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, Dan. Congratulations. I am one of the newer members, so bear with me. I do have several questions. I'm just going to ask a couple right now as I get to know this. So I was interested, obviously, to learn the process because I know nothing about it. But so you have a call, and you might call people that are off duty. So, but you also mentioned the volunteers. Are any of those volunteers, like what positions would they assist with? Are they ever able to go out on a call? Or backfill back at the stations when the on-call firefighters go out?
So we don't have any volunteer firefighters here.
Okay.
The volunteer personnel are the emergency management agency division. It's a small division in town. They would be responsible for setting up maybe a temporary shelter in town. They hand out the flyers at the beach when we're going to evacuate East Beach. The EMA personnel is not engaged in fire or EMS. There's simply a support mechanism for the emergency management side of the fire department, which we are now responsible for over the last, maybe it's, 5 or 10 years. The fire department took that over. We have 10, maybe 9 on-call firefighters. And then we have your career firefighter paramedics. I have 2 call firefighters that are paramedics. One is going to be promoted to a full-time spot in 2 weeks. When Chief Legenda left, we had a vacancy. The other remaining call firefighters are not paramedics, and I want to say probably half of them aren't even EMTs. They're just firefighters, which is fine. I shouldn't say just firefighters, but that's their role here, right? So their primary function is to support the on-duty staff when a call comes in that requires more hands than what we have on duty being paid to be full-time firefighter paramedics.
Mm-hmm.
So they're responsible, they can respond to a fire, they respond in their personal vehicles, and they assist in the fire ground with anything, with everything and anything that they're capable of doing. We have a couple that can run the pump. And there's a lot of training that goes into that. One of the bigger problems that we have, in my opinion, Westport being such a rural town, what are you doing? Where are you working where you're allowed to leave? I worked at a supermarket in town for quite a while, and I was able to leave. If you're working at Ace Hardware and you're running the counter and you're the only one there, you're probably not going to be able to leave. If you're waiting tables at White's Restaurant at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night, you're probably not going to be able to leave. If you're a teller at Bay Coast Bank, you're not going to be able to leave. So Westport just doesn't have that commercial industry or that business industry that allows their employees. So I have a guy, for example, he actually just retired from the Department of Defense, and most of his time was spent down in Washington, D.C. He's on our roster, but he's not available. I've got a call firefighter that works for an armored car Wells Fargo, whatever it is, he can't respond when he's working.
Right.
And then, in all fairness to them, to get them out of bed at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when they got to work the next day, that doesn't always work either. So, unfortunately, I was a call firefighter for 9 years. That's how I, eventually made my way here. And I welcome you to go ahead and read about it. It's not, it's losing its thunder. I spoke with the chief in Swansea, and he doesn't know how much longer they can continue to go on the way they're going on. He has a roster of, I don't know, 65, 70, and he says this time he doesn't know who's coming, if anybody at all. And we're seeing it. I'm not going to get into that whole part, but we're just, it's a different world.
Understand.
It's a different world. When I got on, there were 30 of us, call firefighters. Now we're down to 10, 9. We got a couple that we've worked with over the past year to get them trained, to get them come in. There are some contractual obligations, obviously, with it. The union firefighters have 100% work preference, emergencies excluded. But if a shift has to be filled, it goes to the career first. We will call some call firefighters in during severe storms, maybe a blizzard, or there's no reason that pans out to be anything over the weekend. We usually have to put somebody on a plow because we're responsible for plowing our parking lots, both the north and south station, and we'll also sometimes have to plow away to a medical call. So we'll put personnel on, and we will absolutely use the call firefighters in those situations.
No, understood. No, thank you, and thank you for what you do.
Sure. Was there anything?
Thank you. Al, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I do, and I'll make it as brief as Elise can. First of all, I want to say that to be totally transparent, Danny is like the son I never had. So I just want to make it very clear that I've known him for decades and think he is the right person at the right time in the right place for the right reason. But I also want to say, from listening to him, life is not a spreadsheet. And I know we're the finance committee, and I know that we need to balance, and I know that we need to cobble together all the other stuff. But there are so many things that we need to do. We, as a finance committee, as a town committee, as a town, that transcend going beyond just the pure numbers of whether or not somebody cost X amount or Y amount of money. And I'm just suggesting, and I don't know the answer, I'm posing the question, that it just kind of disturbs me a little bit in general, that we don't have a more holistic view of what it takes to fund a community, to really make the wheels turn, to make the things work. So anyway, Danny, congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you. One other thing to mention about public safety and the fire department and the fire service nowadays, and I don't think I can explain it in any better way. We had to put active shooter equipment on our ambulances last year. That's what we're doing now.
Yeah.
It's not just building fires anymore. That's our role. It's changed. I've been on this department almost 30 years. Our fire engines and our ambulances have active shooter ballistic vests and helmets on them now. Who would have ever thought that we would have had to spend that kind of money for that? And just this weekend, Boston firefighters, I know it's the city of Boston, a lot more people in Westport, were shot at a building fire. They were shot at, and the gun ownership in Westport is high, and the risk is there for us. It's there for our police officers. My brother-in-law is a cop in Westport, it's our role has changed quite a bit. But before I go off on our budget though is pretty straightforward. Some of the increases, non-union personnel, myself, the deputy, administrative assistant, was based on the guidance of the town administrator of a 2% increase. All the other line items and where you do see some increases are contractual. I do have a couple of firefighters that are going to be obtaining their degrees over the next fiscal year. That's why you see a little bit of an increase there. Our expenses, again, we do whatever we can to save money. I just bought a couple of laptops that we needed to replace. The laptops are a couple of grand. I found them on eBay for 600. I bought them with my own credit card. I paid the taxes. That doesn't get reimbursed to me, but I don't care. I couldn't pass it up. They're beautiful, brand new, pieces of equipment, and they saved us thousands of dollars. And we're always looking, we're always scrutinizing. We're always figuring out where can we go, save this, that, and the other thing. As far as money goes, but our expenses are real requests. I got a couple of quotes on my desk right now. We need to replace some gas meters. They're 12 years old, 13 years old. We have 3 of them on our frontline engines. Those are for CO, gas, unknown odors, hazmat. They're $3,300 a piece. Thermal image cameras, we need to replace some of those. I do have a grant pending for that. That's going to be $15,000. And I pulled somebody out of a building using a thermal camera, a semi-conscious female, on July 4th years ago. Left the store, went and did that, went back to the store. But this is this equipment that we have is it's crazy money. I mean, it really is. I agree with you and all the taxpayers and everybody else about the cost. I mean, once you paint it red and put fire on the side of it, the price seems to double. And EMS, EMS wise, the last time we upgraded cardiac monitors, which are $35,000 a piece now, we got 3 of them from Charlton. They gave us a $100,000 donation. Those are still in service. They don't need to be replaced, but it's just an example of some of the costs behind, what's involved in our day-to-day operations. And the other thing to kind of keep in mind is we oversee 2 buildings. I'm responsible for two buildings, parking lots, the utilities and the components, within them. We have a fleet of many different types of vehicles, most of which are diesel. They're not cheap to maintain. We do a good job with our preventative maintenance. Every July, our vehicles go for preventative maintenance, and they're maintained throughout. We don't wait till something breaks. We try to prevent that. We've undercoated our vehicles to prevent from rust. We try and we have some fire engines that are up for replacement. That's one sheet I don't have up on my screen, but one of them is approaching 30 years old. Another one in the high 20s. You don't get that kind of years out of a vehicle unless you're taking care of it. And you got to remember too, it's not just a vehicle, motor, transmission, drivetrain. There's a pump involved. There's high pressure hose lines. There's high pressure components. There's more to the vehicle. Radio equipment, emergency warning lights. There's just it's not your typical motor vehicle, passenger vehicle that's going on the road. There's a lot more components to it, which means there's a lot more that needs upkeep and a lot more that can break. And as our fleet gets older, and costs have gone up. So we use a couple of different diesel mechanics right in town, one on Route 6, one on Adamsville Road. And they're fairly priced. Their labor rates are pretty good. But they've both told me, in order for us to keep the mechanics that we have, the good ones, we got to up our labor rates. And that's happened in the last year. We've seen that. Ambulance equipment, just, it's our revenue generating, machine. As we get busier, as we transport more patients, we require more material, more equipment. Those prices have gone up. And one of the things that I'm starting to realize that happened is while these costs were rising, particularly after COVID, we had some COVID money. We had a lot of COVID money that was coming in and offsetting the cost of those supplies. And I want to say, I guess I'll admit it. We didn't really do a great job of noticing that inflation. Now that money's gone, that COVID money's gone, and I'm looking at these bills and I'm saying, whoa, what's this? Why is this much? How can this be this much? Gauze, boxes of gauze, whatever it is, it adds up. So I think while our ambulance, well, I'll get to that right now. I might as well. So as you know, our ambulance revolving account currently sits at 180. I'm asking for a $10,000 increase to bring it to 190. That also covers our ambulance lease when we purchase a new vehicle. Obviously, the 10,000 is, and Haley is still kind of putting together numbers, but we are up in revenue. She didn't have the totals, and it was a little bit hard for her to compare because she was out on maternity leave last year, so she wasn't processing things as quickly. So when she was trying to do a year-over-year comparison, she wasn't comfortable with her numbers, other than saying that she's comfortable that the revenue is up. So the $10,000 that we're asking additional to bring that account to 190, when we're bringing in it's going to be close to $1 million. That 10,000 is going to be superseded by the additional revenue that we're bringing in. And it's anywhere from, $800, $1,200 probably that we bring back. Motor vehicle accidents, we get 100% reimbursement. Medicare, a lot of it's contractual. I think we get 800. There's a couple of insurance companies that pay in full or pay more. I think Aetna might be one of them. It's all stuff I'm trying to learn over the last month with everything else. But I've had a lot of conversations with Haley, our administrative assistant, about the ambulance billing and is there any way we can change things and whatnot. But our revenue's up. A lot of departments keep their revenue in their department budget. Somerset has 13 firefighters on their payroll. They have 30, and I think it's about 32 in total. But I think 13 of them, last time I talked to Chief Barrows, 13 of them comes out of the ambulance money that they generate. That's a little dicey if he has a down year. Like during COVID, you would think that we were up. We were actually quiet in 2020. Quiet by, compared to now, but less people were going to the hospital because they were actually afraid to go to the hospital. So revenue dropped that particular, actually I have revenue dropped that particular year, but it's bouncing right back up. Too many windows open here.
That's okay. And Dan, we've got a couple of questions that are
Okay.
piling up for you. So if you want to,
Okay.
Hugh, you have your hand up. So I'll let Hugh ask his
Thank you.
question.
I'm wondering, interested in what the acquisition process is for supplies, et cetera. Is it Westport all by itself, or I can see that there might be some advantages if that is the case in some regional cooperation with, say, guys in Dartmouth or anybody else. You may already explored that and you've done what you can do, but I'm curious about whether that is something that might be a possibility.
Yep. So I can touch on that briefly, and I can answer your question. Years ago, we were doing the ordering in house. We were using catalogs, and we weren't getting any bulk savings. Put it that way. Working in a store, I said to myself, we got to stop buying in bulk, but we have to worry about expiration dates, which everything on our truck, right down to a Band-Aid, has an expiration date. It's actually wild. I mean, gauze. So we do have to worry about buying in bulk. There are some things that, yes, we will buy in bulk. So what we ended up doing was we ended up partnering with a company called Clinical One. And I've had a lot of conversations with, I actually want to say he's the owner. And if he's not the owner, he's definitely one of the top dogs there. And I asked him about bulk purchasing. And the way he does it is he, deals with a lot of fire departments, quite a few in our area. So he does the bulk buying on his end. Obviously he has a markup, and then he passes that savings along to us. I can say that he's definitely cheaper than going through a catalog. I want to say, and I'll have to get back to you on that. I think we've explored, working with Fall River, and it wasn't there. Like the cost savings wasn't there. So what we've done is both our EMS stock rooms at Station 1 and Station 2, we've set PARs. So everything's scanned in. We've set PARs to, the amount of equipment, and we want X amount of gloves on hand. We're constantly reviewing. I'm actually working with our EMS coordinator now. We're reviewing those PARs. We've adjusted some of the numbers down. Maybe we're finding that, hey, we're not using a particular intubation tube anymore, especially after COVID, that we switched to something else. So it's still an option for us, but we're using something now called a King tube. It just kind of came into play during COVID, and it's something that's preferred, a little bit cheaper. So while we're also required to have X amount of pieces of equipment on our trucks. We staff to the minimum. Not staff. We stock to the minimum supply level as mandated by the state, and we are constantly adjusting our PAR to meet our needs. We don't want waste. We don't need waste. Waste just costs money. Believe me when I say we are all over the cost of our EMS supplies. And honestly, we transport 1,877 patients. We treat and get refusals from a significant amount more than that. All those calls usually involve whether it's a blood sugar check or a bandage, whatever it may be, intubating a patient, defibrillating a patient, multiple things that we do. Usually there's a cost behind it. And the cost of the rep is fairly minimal. Keep in mind that out of that 180, a lot of that is absorbed by, so we do our own billing. We pay Cortex as an ambulance billing company $2,300 a year. Kind of minimal. The ambulance lease is $111. The EMS reporting system that we have to obviously have a state approved reporting system. That's
Yeah, I
$7,300.
understand, but I sort of wonder, one thing that comes to my mind is whether there's some cooperation with other people in the field. For instance, South Coast, you said, very kindly gave some machines. Maybe, and these are simply thoughts, they may make no sense whatsoever, but they offer them the thought of South Coast is in the same field as the ambulance service, et cetera, EMTs are. Maybe there's a chance to cooperate with them on some of this stuff where there is a bulk buyer, but you don't have to buy the same bulk that South Coast does. You get a little bit of the bulk that they bring in, and maybe it's a lot cheaper. I emphasize maybe, because I don't know if there's make any sense contractually other ways. And the other side of that, on the fire side, well, River's pretty big, and River had its problems with the former mayor who is now the guest of the feds. But maybe Dartmouth, I know there are the fire districts in Dartmouth. You maybe have tried all these things. I don't mean to belabor the point, but maybe there's some way to be a little creative with other guys where you're not buying a lot of bulk that you may go bad, but you're sharing it with others. And so the usage is faster, but the cost is cheaper. Just a thought.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Christopher, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Deputy soon-to-be Chief. Congratulations. I'm also one of the newer members of the committee, so forgive me for both my lack of knowledge when it comes to the operations of the fire department, but also in some of the process here. But I do have just a few questions. I want to start out with looking at the capital investments that have recommendations that have been made, as well as specifically the replacement schedule. So just out of curiosity, the difference in the cost between replacing or acquiring a new forestry engine versus the pumper, is that just simply because a new forestry engine does not need the same pumping equipment? I'm just looking at the 275 versus 850, and I'm just curious as to the difference there.
Yeah, so it's two entirely different types of vehicles. A fire engine. Picture what you see going, down the road. Typically, a forestry vehicle is more of say an F550, a utility body on the back, something of that nature. It doesn't carry as much hose. 500 feet of forestry hose is typical. The tank is smaller. It's a completely different type of vehicle. The reason why I think we have too many fire engines. Okay. That could come back to bite me one day, but I don't think so. Right now, we took engine 2, and it's been in this position now for a little while, a couple of years, and we made that a forestry truck because we don't have a forestry truck for the south end. We only have a forestry truck located in the north end at this time. It's a 1997, 27-year-old pumper, and I just feel as though we've survived without it. It's a $800 to $1 million replacement cost that when I look at our schedule, it's in front of me now. We got another engine that needs to be replaced. Our tank is 20 years old. There's no appetite to spend $2-3 million on 2 or 3 trucks. I'm well aware of that. But again, I don't necessarily think it's necessary. I think a forestry truck would serve us better in the south end. It'd be more appropriate. I can't drive onto fields with that engine 2, which is our makeshift forestry truck in the south end. Access is tight on where we end up most of the time for brush fires and things of that nature. So it's just not the appropriate truck. We're getting by with it. I took it myself to a brush fire last spring. We had quite a few fires in one day, and I was limited to where I could go. The fire was in the field. I can't drive that thing across the field, or I'm going to be paying big wheels, a couple $1,000 to come tow me out. It's not a 4-wheel drive vehicle. Plus, you got to factor in the 1,000 gallons of water it carries, times 8.5 pounds per gallon. It's just a big, heavy truck that's not meant for off-road operations. So I feel as though with the tanker pumper, which is our engine 1, engine 3 and 4, which are our front line, engine 5, which is our reserve, in our ladder truck, that's adequate, especially given our staffing levels. We don't have 3, 4, companies. A company in the fire service is a group that staffs a fire engine. These trucks, it's not necessary. So that's why I'm advocating for the replacement of the forestry truck. And then we can focus on replacing engine 5, which is a 30-year-old pumper, which it sounds like you look through our presentation. That was a truck that fought fires in Foxborough, then went to Fall River, had a blown motor, ended up at Henry's on Route 6. I believe we paid for the motor to be rebuilt years ago, and now that's our truck. Our engine 4, which is a 2017 Frontline truck, was T-boned, not our fault. Somebody hit it on Route 6. Actually, they hit a police cruiser, then they hit us. And our truck was out of service for 4 or 5 months. Of course, they hit the pump panel, which is the worst place they could have hit. And we were running Frontline truck in the north end of town, the more heavily populated part of town. A 30-year-old truck was our Frontline truck. I'm expected to put guys in a hand line in the building and have confidence in a 30-year-old truck for our reserve. It's past its time for replacement. 25 years, you're 25 years, you're stretching it. 30 years, you're beyond. It's time to either put it out of service. Replacement was projected in 2019. So again, looking at the budget, looking at the the town situation that it's in, we still need fire protection. And that's why I think this is the most fiscally responsible plan is to reallocate some funding and save some money and put a forestry truck in the south end, the more rural end of town, the more open land, fields, farm fields, things like that, where you're more likely to have some of these brush fires that get into the woods and get out of control. Everybody burns in Westport. It's just one of those things that happens from January 15th through May 1st, and even outside of burning season. And then focus on replacing engine 5. I'm going to try hard for a grant. Fire apparatus grants are extremely difficult. There's about 150 on average that are awarded nationwide. They receive billions of dollars in requests, and the only issue, I think it's 500 million. But we're going to give it a go. It'd be my first attempt at it. I've had some success in grant writing over the last couple of years. I have not had success in the SAFER grant. I don't know why. Every year I speak with our liaison from FEMA. They give me the pointers, change this, change that. And that's another one though. I think it was 3.2 billion in requests for SAFER and 500 something million in award money. I mean, it's very hard to do. Extremely competitive. I mean, the 2 grants that we got for the Scott packs and then those extrication equipment. I was shocked when we got the email saying that we got it because it's very hard to do. So, point is, we'll try for a grant. We'll try and offset the cost, away from the taxpayer and put it to the federal government, which we all pay taxes on anyway. But it'd be, I don't want to say a miracle, but I'm going to try my best. But it's not an easy grant to write. It's not an easy grant to write. It can't be depended on. We can't. I'll sit here and write grants all day. It's part of my job. I have no problem doing it, but we can't rely on grants to supplement the budget. I know the town's got a lot of other requests for capital money, but this is something that we need to look at. If there's any other capital items that you wanted to discuss.
Christopher, did you have any other questions?
I did have a couple of other
go
questions
ahead.
beyond the capital. I sincerely appreciate the answers and thank you for the effort with the grants. I know that the competitive nature makes it sometimes might seem a little wasted, but we really do appreciate the effort, to augment wherever possible. I just had a couple of actually, I'll just do one little quick question. I noticed in the write-up you had about the Briggs Road station that there had been an issue on election day with that being a polling place. Just out of curiosity, have you had a chance to or even your predecessor has either one of you had a chance to talk with the town clerk about any possibility of changing that anytime soon? Or?
I have not had a conversation with her about that. I have not. I will, but I have not. It's more problematic on when you have your federal elections, like the presidential election and things like that. We've had issues blocking the doorways, things like that. And sometimes people don't really realize that they're pulling up in front of a garage door, and we get it. But again, some of the the way we dispatch now, information comes overhead the speakers. We actually have to go out there and we don't cut the wires anymore. We cut it the first time. Now we just have them wire nutted together. We eliminate the speakers from that side of the apparatus bay, so that way people can't hear the conversations. I mean, names ain't, it doesn't say, Dan Baldwin, having chest pain over the radio, over the speaker system, but it will give an address. And, there's this, certain level of privacy there that we should be able to maintain. And it's a functioning fire department. We have people trying to use the bathroom in and out of the station. When the members leave, they lock the doors, so people can't get in. And we've had complaints about that. Well, I can't get into the bathroom. Well, there's nobody here because they just left on a call. And I don't know what the plans are for the future high school. I've heard, little bits and pieces. I mean, honestly, I'll just put it out there. That would be a great central polling location for the entire town, in my opinion. Just divide up that building into a few different precincts. But the gym is one, the auditorium is another, the cafeteria is another. I mean, that would be, there's plenty of parking. That's the other thing too, the north end. I mean, where do you even park? We don't have a lot of parking. We get numerous state vehicles up there now. We have American Red Cross parking in the lot up there. We have trailers out back. There's like maybe 10 parking spots up front. So parking, especially on the federal election, parking is a massive issue as far as where do people park, so it's just a concern, and it's kind of growing, over the years. I'm sure that, with the next election coming up, again, we'll see a lot of heavy traffic through that precinct, and it's just caused some problems in the past. Just something that should be explored as far as another option for a polling place.
Excellent, thank you. And the final question I had was actually about the request to establish a fire prevention revolving fund article.
Sure.
I'm just curious what the what in effect what difference would it be having that fund as opposed to where it is right now?
So it's something new that we've talked about. It would provide a source of funding for a few different things. There's a lot of permitting software, and I will say this is that after I presented this, I did read an article, the fire department, to my knowledge, we were not aware of this. The town is engaged in some sort of permitting program at town hall, and I did say the fire department would be involved. I don't know to what extent, but there's something that's happening maybe through the city website, city.gov website, where similar to what you can go online, you can pay your taxes online through a portal. Sounds like that's going to be expanded upon. I don't know anything about it, but prior to reading that in Showlines or wherever I saw it, there's programs and software available where people can acquire permits online. Of course, there's a money there's a cost behind the platform. I would love to see the residents, in particular the real estate agents, be able to schedule their smoke inspections online rather than calling in and waiting for a call back. We went back and forth with an agent this morning, and it wasn't her fault. We called her back 2 or 3 times. She's on the other line. She's calling saying nobody's calling. It's not a good process, and we do, our fire prevention office handles, he has over 1,300 activities logged for the year. There's different software available, a lot of fire departments for site and plan review. We do work with the planning board, et cetera. The marijuana facility, the new school, town place suites, all these buildings require us to do a site review and a plan review, fire hydrant locations, turnarounds for the vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. I'll be honest with you, our fire prevention officer has a magnifying glass in his desk, and that literally he's looking at a piece of paper and he's trying to study the site plan, where a lot of other fire departments now, when we go into visit these other local departments, and they've got a screen, they got it hooked up to their computer, and they're able to project the image of the plan, and they can actually see it, and they can, usually with a whiteboard, make markings and just, really just do their job more effectively. And the fire prevention officer, he does require a vehicle. He just has an SUV. He puts a lot of road miles on a year. We take good care of the vehicle. I think it's got 75,000. It's a 2017. I don't want to have to go before Capitol and beg to keep a vehicle or have a vehicle replaced and then be told, sorry, there's no money, and then we can't perform that function. So it's now $10,000 isn't going to buy you a vehicle. I get that. But it's a starting point. And in the back of my mind, and maybe this is a long way out, and I don't know if it would work. The more I look into it, I think it's working better for like Dartmouth District 1, 2, and 3 because of the way they're funded. They have a totally separate, they're not limited really by the 2.5. I was just thinking, maybe it's a starting point where we, instead of coming to capital and saying, hey, I need 850 grand for a new truck, money can be banked into that account. And again, looking forward, my part, a person that takes over for me one day, maybe there's an account where money can be set aside and with the, have a replacement plan. Hey, in 10 years, we got to replace this truck. We got to figure out a way to put X amount of dollars aside. Maybe it's half, maybe it's, obviously if you're going to lease a vehicle, the longer you lease it, the more you're paying in interest. So maybe we pay half up front. There's a couple of emails going around right now through the Bristol County Chiefs. I think Ford is purchasing a new vehicle. Dartmouth, they're paying cash for all their trucks. I don't know if we're able to get that here in Westport, but I just looked at it as a, potential starting point for future expansion, future development, maybe a place to bank some money, for heavier pieces of equipment like fire apparatus. That's a long way down the road. I don't know enough about it. I would have to, work with you folks and other chiefs to see how they do it, capital committee, et cetera. So that's really what that article is about. It is a new article for us. And it's kind of just a stepping stone, just to kind of get us up into we've done a pretty good job of getting into the current century as far as, how we operate. But honestly, a lot of it is like through Google Drive and, free, which is great. But, we haven't bought into a lot. I get calls all the time, this is so-and-so from somewhere out in the Midwest. I'd like to sell you this product, so I can schedule an employee scheduling system for $4,000. And I said, no, we do it on Google for free. And that stuff all works out well for us. That's internally. For the public, we don't have anything to offer as far as ease of scheduling and things like that. So it's a starting point for software. I'd be happy to talk about that number if 10 isn't doable, but it's just a starting point. And I think something that if it's not required now, it will definitely be down the road. Can we continue to get by with what we're doing? Sure, but we're not progressing. We're not helping our residents and things like that. We're in a little bit of a lull as far as real estate transactions go, but we all know how that goes. And that'll only spike as rates come down, and we'll be slamming again with, real estate transactions. Even burning permits can be done online. We don't do that. We make the residents come into the building. Hopefully we're here. We're not on a call, but we can, they didn't waste their time driving here, et cetera. I'd like to get out of cash and only accept check. We pretty much enforce that. We really don't take cash unless somebody says I have nothing else or I don't have a checkbook or whatever the situation is. A lot of people want to pay with debit cards. We don't offer that. So I was thinking this article might help us, branch down that payment avenue as well, where we can accept, forms of payment.
Yeah, Dan, you raise a lot of good questions with that. So this year, the Finance Committee, working with the Select Board and the School Committee, we're all trying to work together to look beyond the current year. Even though we may not be able to afford things, we're really trying to look at our capital needs beyond the year and start to think about planning for that. I think we tend to each year really focus on the needs of the operating budget and really keep putting off the needs of the capital needs. And eventually those needs are going to be so mountainous that we're going to have to deal with them. And that will be at the detriment of everything else. So we're trying to do what we can to really start to plan. And what you're saying exactly, we should be looking at establishing capital plans and capital savings so that you're going to need a fire truck or pieces of equipment. The highway department knows they're going to need things at some point, so that we're actually starting to put things away that we can plan for those sort of things. So kudos to you for at least getting something out there. We certainly need to look at that more, and maybe if the article is valid, maybe it's more than 10,000 that needs to help fund that. But we'll certainly talk about that once we have all the warrant articles in front of us. But thank you for that. Christopher, did you have any other questions for Dan?
That was it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Dan, did you have any other highlights for us that you wanted to bring to our attention? You've certainly given us quite a bit of information, and it's greatly appreciated.
No, I don't. I think next year I will present our capital plan a little differently. I think it would be best explained in two categories: operations and safety, and building maintenance. Because it really is two entirely different things. And after walking this building at Station 1, there's a lot to think about. Heating is just a lot. I'm big in preventative maintenance. There has been no preventative maintenance done to the exterior of this building. I presented that several times at my capital requests or my capital committee meetings. If we put off simple things like power washing and stain, we're just going to be replacing things like shingles. The north end, I put in replacement of windows and trim. The north end it needs some sprucing up. There's no appetite to replace that building, and I'm not even saying that that's something that needs to be done anytime in the near future. The building is in okay shape. The guys don't mind working there. It's comfortable for their needs. It's small. It's not energy efficient. It's not insulated well. Most of it's cinder block. Windows, we had, like I said before, we had a member that was caulking the windows to keep some of the breeze coming out. But the point is if we don't spend that 30 grand to upkeep that building, we're going to be looking at more expenses. It doesn't make sense to not maintain your equipment in your buildings. And I'm going to continue to ask for that every year. We'll continue to do in-house what we can and can't do. Obviously, we cannot paint Station 1. It's just too big for my members to go out there and paint the station. That's going to need to be professionally done. And maybe it can be, maybe some of these requests can be broken down, maybe, hey, windows 1 year, we'll trim the next, what have you. But, that's something that if you kick the can on the road, and that goes for all town buildings, it's just going to cost you more in the long run. It really is. My house I take care of it annually, fall, spring. I'm out there doing whatever I need to do to cut down on any expenses. So whatever influence or you folks have as far as capital requests go, especially when it comes to preventative maintenance, I would strongly ask for your support as far as the fire department goes, because it's just going to save us in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Thank you, Dan. Cindy, you've got your hand up.
I just had one comment, and it really kind of goes back to where, to some degree, I think the name of the fire department should be expanded to include emergency medical services, because I think too often people think of it as the fire department and don't realize that you're running on average 5 runs a day on emergency medical services. You said you had over 1,800 calls in 2023. So that being said, I mean, if using a comparison like Dartmouth, they have a volunteer group, they have a call firefighter group. That's for the fire issue. That's for the fire department issue. They have a private ambulance service in the town of Dartmouth. That is far different. You cannot compare the Dartmouth services to what we provide here in Westport. I don't think that that's a good comparison at all, because the amount of services that you provide is so different from each other. I mean, I'll take a personal experience. I had a fall at my home about 8 weeks ago. The ambulance was here under 10 minutes. I'm going to say it was probably 8 minutes. Had I had to rely on a private ambulance service coming from Fall River, from Tiverton, from Dartmouth, wherever, I would have had to have added minimally 20 additional minutes onto that call. So when you think about the demographic situation of people aging in place here in town, that many of us are very proud of, that people have chosen to stay here and retire here and age in place. We're not adding to the burden of the school system. We enjoy, the beauty of the town, but we do require some emergency medical services. The vast majority of, the majority of the population is soon going to be crossing over that 60, 62 age. So the biggest portion of the population in town here are going to be needing those exact services. So I think to even think that there's some way that we could compromise any of those services right now is ridiculous. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. We're not a fire department. It's a fire and emergency medical service department that we really provide that service to. And you do a great job at both of them. But I think too many people say, oh, well, we don't have very many fires here. Well, if you've never had to rely on the services of the ambulances or the emergency medical team, then you'll certainly think a lot differently about what services they provide for that budget.
Out west, they're starting to refer to departments now as all hazard departments.
Right,
That's really what we do,
right, absolutely.
So, but I want to just mention something, and this could be a whole nother meeting and conversation, and I'm just I need to mention it just so that way everybody's clear. There are no volunteer firefighters in Dartmouth. There are no volunteer firefighters in Dartmouth. Dartmouth District 3, which is up by Walmart, has full-time union firefighters just like Westport. They do not provide EMS services. They are there 24/7. He has 4 on shift, and his budget is about $4 million a year. The town of Dartmouth has 3 separate districts. They have 3 fire chiefs. They have 3 deputy chiefs. They have 5 fire stations. In total, they spend about $6 million just providing firefighting services.
Right, there is no comparison.
2.5, 2.7. Swansea volunteer fire department has an operating budget of $1.1 million. Okay, there is a cost behind just a fire department. Okay, I will advocate and promote a fire-based EMS system, and again, that's a whole other conversation. There are plenty of benefits. I mentioned those in my chief's interview at the selectmen meeting, which that question I was not expecting, but I was ready for it, and it can be expanded on. I can sit here for another 2 hours. I'm not going to do that to you folks, but that every time I hear somebody, I've heard it a couple of times this past year, volunteer in Dartmouth, it's not the case. It's not the case. Not the case at all. So if we're going to be compared to them, I just want everybody to understand what they're comparing us to. And I love Dartmouth Fire. I talk with them all the time about how they operate over there and what we can do over here, and we exchange information on a regular basis. But yep, they're a full-time union organization in District 3 at least. District 2 is down in Russell's Mills. They got 1 or 2 full-time on during the day. District 1, I think it's the same situation, but they're near Padenham, and honestly, I get along well with the chief and the members there, but I don't know them like I do District 3 per se, to speak on how they operate. But I know that they have a $1.3 million budget.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that too. I think, as we all know, we're under very tight constraints, right, with our fiscal budget. And in different meetings, different members, whether they're finance committee or other participants may, say, what about this? What about this? Sometimes those questions, we're just trying to put everything on the table.
Oh, yeah, they're understood. Yeah.
Right?
Yep,
Sometimes
they're understood
those
and
questions,
they're expected in tough financial times. I get it. I understand. I just want to make sure that everybody has the right information when those conversations come up.
It had come up as a question, and I think in some circles it's circled further than I think the question intended to go.
Yeah, I know.
But thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Hugh, you have your hand up.
You're on mute, You're on mute.
Yeah. The one revenue generating component we have in many things is the ambulance system. And I know that it's budgeted differently, it's kept track of, it's reimbursed through insurance, et cetera, and so forth. And I know that's taken into account in your budgeting, but I think it's worthwhile pointing that out because that is self-sufficient to a large extent and helps to keep the rest of the budget afloat, because some of the time of the guys who are firefighters is actually on the ambulance when they're getting paid for a different source, in the sense of the insurance reimbursement for the runs to the department. Doesn't make a difference, I expect them individually, but it does help supplement the overall budget. And I don't think any suggestion about doing anything other than maintaining it. It's very good. We've been the beneficiaries, as some know. And my point is simply that needs to be pointed out. No harm in changing names and such, but it's an important function that is real revenue that pays for ambulances, among other things.
Thank you, Hugh. Does anyone have any other questions for Dan? Dan, I see no other hands, but again, if you have anything else that you want to bring forward to us that's important, feel free. If not, we'll let you go home to your family and enjoy the rest of your night.
Okay, you as well. Thank you for
Great. Well,
allowing me.
we appreciate you coming here and congratulations, and we look forward to calling you chief very soon.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye.
All right. Okay. So I think that is the rest of our department budgets for the evening. So the next item on our agenda is our standing fiscal 25 budget, 5-year operating, 5-year capital plan. We have a meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at Town Hall, and it's hybrid if someone is not able to go to Town Hall. And we are meeting with members of the Select Board and the school committee, and we will be talking about the most recent budget submitted by the town administrator. And I forwarded that to everyone. Does anyone have any questions on the format? I know, again, we've got a few new members here. Does anyone have any questions on that budget? Because we'll otherwise go into it in further detail tomorrow night. But if anyone had any questions on format or anything.
I just want to confirm, Karen, it's 6:30. I saw something that said 3 o'clock. So I assume you're right, but I just want to make sure that
It
is
is
the time.
6 p.m.
6, okay, thank you.
6 p.m. I'm not sure what might have said 3, hopefully not. 6 p.m. Go ahead, Al.
Seems a little strange, but you never know.
Unless something changes, I will still be on hybrid. I'm just like COVID fog right now or beyond. So enough said about that, but I will be there. I just want to let you know that if you can hook me up with a hybrid, that would be great.
Yep. So the link should be in our emails, and it's also right on the town's website. Any member of the public can join.
Okay.
So they can come right in.
Must see TV, right?
Yeah. We'll see.
Thank
Karen,
you.
when you said you forwarded the budget, did you forward it in email or was it in the Google Doc?
It's all in the Google Drive.
That's why I couldn't access it. I'm going to try again, but I was trying tonight, but I couldn't.
Oh, can you not get in there?
I could, but I didn't see anything new. Like any of the budgets tonight, like I couldn't find them. I think I tried to reach out to you earlier today.
Oh, I've been in meetings all day. Sorry.
That's okay. I totally understand. So I'll let you know if I still can't locate it, but I couldn't find anything for tonight.
Okay.
I certainly didn't see the school budget.
Okay.
Or the town budget, rather, the town
In
administration.
yep. So in our Google Drive, there's a folder that's with today's date, and then there's subfolders with fire, library, planning.
I saw
there's
some of them.
another
I
one-
saw the previous ones.
Okay.
But I'll
Maybe
look
you
again.
can- Yeah, we can, I'll be happy to kind of help if you can't get in, to try to figure out how we can get you in there. So, and there's a folder called TA Budget Draft 12/12/23. So that's where the town administrator's budget that he presented to the select board, and he did a PowerPoint presentation. They're in there.
Yep.
But if you can't get them, let me know, and then we can email them to you as well.
Okay.
Michelle, I will just echo your the issues that you have. Sometimes I can look at a document that's in that Google Drive, and then I'll come back to it later that day or the next week, and it's no longer there.
Mhm.
And then I'll come back and it'll be there again. I find it very elusive, and sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. I mean, I can't find folders that I know were there before. If I shut everything down and boot it back up, sometimes it reappears, but I have trouble with that Google Drive.
Yeah,
the
I don't
shared
use it a
drive.
lot, like, at work or anything like that.
Yeah.
So this is new, but I'll try it again.
Are you both on Android, or do you have Apple? What's
Apple. Yeah, I'm
Do you have-
using an
what was-
Apple product. Yeah.
Oh,
Are you on an Apple product or?
no, I have a regular, I'm just
Yeah.
using my work laptop. Or if
Yeah.
I'm home, it's my Apple, and I don't know that I've tried up on my Mac. I'm not sure
Yeah.
about that.
Okay. Okay, well, let's see, because it's, the Google Drive is the official town, drive for documents. If it's not working for us, we can see about switching, or we can convert also to email and send them out to you that way too, so.
No, it's fine. I'll work on it.
Okay, whatever we need to do, so this way every member has all the documents that, that we want you all to have, so we'll figure that out. Anyone else have questions at all on the, anything, or we'll just go through it tomorrow night? Okay, great. I will, keep on going on our meeting. 1 second. So, 1 second, I lost my agenda. Okay, the next item is committee liaison updates. Do we have any updates from anybody? I think, and I'm not sure who's on, I'm not sure what's coming up for articles. So it'll be interesting to know if anybody, Hugh, I know you're on the CPC, and of course there's going to be an article on the CPC, but is anybody on any other committees that there is an article looming to be on that we need to have an update?
Well, that'll be.
So, so I'm on, personnel board as well as the CIPC, the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. We are meeting on Thursday again. We pretty much have heard all of the presentations from various departments that are seeking capital expenditures. The list is quite lengthy, and we have not ranked any of them yet. So, and the town administrator has begun the process of kind of fanning them out over a 5-year period. Some of the ones that the department heads had come to us with and explained that these were more future needs versus present needs. So that ball is starting to roll a little bit, that to looking to the future and not just this year, or ask for everything now and take what you can get and then just throw it on to the next year. So I think people are starting to think, department heads are starting to think a little bit more on a timeline issue. Certainly the fire chief has been on that. But there are some rather significant, requests out there. So it will be interesting to see how, this is my first year on this committee, so I'll see how that process goes with ranking them in some type of urgency order or by need. Personnel board may need some very modest additional funding for the compensation study. We'll see about that. I'm not really sure what the final tally. We may be $5,000-$10,000 short, but the select board may be able to use their professional services account to make up the difference, but we'll see about that. So there may be an article to extend the funding for that study, which is now just starting to begin. I have a meeting on that also on Thursday. But those are the only two committee liaisons. That's it.
Great, thank you. Is anybody on the infrastructure committee other than Lawrence was? I don't think anybody is.
No.
No, but
Okay.
I'd like to weigh in. You sent an email, Karen,
Yep.
a few days ago, and Lawrence was also on the fire department committee, and I said to you that I would be happy to weigh in. So if that still makes sense, then dial me in. If not, then we can do something else.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. If there isn't anybody else jumping at the fire, I think that would be fantastic.
Karen,
It
do
would
we have
really
the
be.
idea of a possible replacement, or is that sometime in the never?
I'm sorry, say it again, Hugh.
Do we have any idea of a possible replacement for Lawrence, or is that in the never?
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Steve Forrs is aware of the resignation, so, I'm not sure where he stands at the moment with that. So that was, only a week or two ago, and it's been the
Right.
holidays, so I'm not sure. So I would love to find a replacement if we can and have a full committee again. So in terms of Lawrence's departments, right? So I think fire department was one of the larger ones.
Right.
Which we just had tonight. So, that makes it a little easier. And Lawrence was on the veterans, graves and services. So that's a relatively small, budget. So that's,
Karen, I've done that in the past. It's easy enough to pick it up again.
okay. All right. Thank you, Hugh. I'd appreciate that. And then Lawrence, Christopher, and myself are liaisons of the school. So, Christopher, we're down to 2. So I think we're okay with that for now. In terms of Lawrence's committees, he was on the school building committee, the infrastructure committee, and the internet advisory committee. I believe the infrastructure oversight committee is maybe planning a warrant article soon. So it might even be too difficult at this point for someone to try to jump in to be able to get up to speed with that. But that is one someone should be on. I volunteered to jump on the school building committee just because there's not a lot happening. And this way we at least just have some representation on that committee.
Mhm. Well,
And I don't know what the Internet Advisory Committee is or does to know what that committee is, because I'm not sure we've really got much.
Well, that
reporting from
one
committee.
seems to be fairly active. If you talk to, if you talk to Shauna, I mean, I think that committee meets on a fairly regular basis, because it has a lot to do with, all of this, last mile and the FiOS linkage that, the town's been involved in putting the town offices together, and now with the broadband and the fiber optic that they want to expand to be able to bring to people's homes. So that committee, I think, meets pretty regularly. I think anytime Shauna speaks at the select board meeting, quite frequently, and they meet every 2 weeks, quite frequently she will indicate that they have just had a meeting or have one coming up. So I think they meet maybe at least once a month, if not twice a month. Because they're very much involved in that whole infrastructure of putting in new fiber optics.
Is there anyone interested in joining that committee here?
I don't know enough about it, so.
No,
I'm not-
I don't either.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it'll stay vacant at the moment. Michelle, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you had also heard from the beach committee, because I attempted to reach out. I've just never heard back.
The only thing that I heard is that somebody from the beach committee must have signed up when we sent the email out to schedule their budget meeting. So I haven't spoken to anyone.
Sean Leach is the person you need to reach.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I've seen the name and I've sent a couple of emails. I don't have a phone number. I didn't see anything, but I have reached out a couple of times.
Yeah. I would call the select board's office and ask how to get in touch with the beach committee. I mean, anybody from the general public that would want to get in touch with the beach committee should have a mechanism to be able to do that, right? So there should be some sort of contact information on the town's website or.
And the only thing is that same email address that you provided.
Yeah, I'm in the dark as much as you are, Michelle.
Okay, okay.
But I'd call the select board's office and ask, how do we get in touch with the beach committee? How do we get in touch with Sean?
I'll do that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And maybe they could go as far as putting it on the town website of good contact information for all of us as the general public as well. Let's see. So at the moment, so no one will join the advisory committee, so that's fine. The infrastructure oversight is another one. We can leave that open at this point too. And maybe a new member can come in and jump in on those. Okay. So our next item on the agenda is, I think, our minutes of December 5th to review and approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 5th.
Any
Second.
second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on those minutes?
Karen, I was absent, so I abstained.
Okay. All right, perfect.
And Gary lost his connection, so he's no longer on the call.
Oh, okay. Let's see, how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3.
5.
Well,
Six.
5, 6, right?
Five.
I
We have,
always never count myself.
we have 6. We have
Yeah, I
6,
found even though I abstained as present.
right, but we only need 5.
We need 5.
yeah.
Okay, so I will, sounds like we can have a quorum, so I will do a roll call. Al Lees,
Al Lees, aye.
thank you. Christopher,
Christopher Thrasher, aye.
thank you. Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye.
thank you. And Michelle
Michelle Orlando, I.
and Karen Rouse, aye. Thank you. All right, so those minutes are all set.
Aaron, I think I vote abstained. for the
Okay,
record.
thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate you. All right, and Hugh is abstained. Okay. In terms of, so we do have a meeting tomorrow, and just to remind everyone, we have meetings next Tuesday, the 9th, next Tuesday, the 16th, next Tuesday, the 23rd. Then we are skipping January 30th. And then we have our last budget meeting on February 6th, and that's with the school. So those are our upcoming meetings. I know this is a tough month, so I appreciate everyone. And so I don't want to belabor tonight since we'll see you all tomorrow. Does anyone have anything else that they want to talk about before we adjourn for tonight?
Nope, just
Great,
have a evening.
great. So motion to adjourn if we can,
So
please.
moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Al?
Yes, second. Al Lees.
All of the above.
Oh,
Christopher?
Chris Thrasher, aye.
Thank you. Cindy?
Cindy Brown, aye.
Hugh?
Hugh Morton, aye.
Michelle?
Michelle Orlando, I.
And Karen Rouse, aye. Thank you.